Here we are. No, I couldn't continue our conversation because I'm on television now, you see. Not that I'm ashamed of you. My first and only guest tonight, probably my last tonight, so he'll be here through the whole show, is a man who's made over 100 movies. And yet he said once, if I ever acted in my whole life, I did it without knowing. Starlets have ripped off their apparel at the sight of him. He has been married, however, to the same woman for 30 years. Charles Laughton said about him once, he's a very tender man, a very great gentleman, one of my favorite people in the whole world, unquote. And he has, however, been known in his day, from beginning to end, to terrify interviewers. I'm assuming this is not the end, of course, tonight. He was a study in contradictions. They say that about him, all those cliches, but certainly a fascinating man. And he is, as you all know, a very big star. Will you welcome, please, Mr. Robert Mitchum. I think if one more person had told me how many times you've terrified interviewers, I wouldn't have been able to do this tonight. Is that exaggerated at all? How do you generally go about it?
I really don't know. I don't feel that I terrify interviewers. They more or less terrify me. There's a lady present who knows something about my reputation with interviewers. For instance, one time I was working at RKO, which was, you know, it was a fixture. Every studio had one mule, and I was their mule. And there was an English lady whose name was Violet. I remember that.
Violet?
Violet, yeah. Mm-hmm. And this has been credited to a lot of other ladies. But anyway, she was sitting in the dressing room, and I was working on a picture with Janie Russell, and she said, "Is this your first film with Miss Russell?" And I said, "Yes, it is." She said, "Do you enjoy working with Miss Russell?" And I said, "Yeah." And she said, "Do you plan any further films with Miss Russell?" And I said, "No." Because, you know, mine wasn't the planning department, you know. Mine was the yes and no, you know. So she said, "Do you like this film?" And I said, "No, I don't." I said, "I enjoy making it," you know. I said, "But, you know," she said, "Don't you think it's a good film?" I said, "It's a lousy film." So she burst into tears and ran out, and she said, "I can't talk to him." Well, I answered every question, you know, as well as I possibly could, but...
But maybe she was supposed to do a 2,000-word article, and she would have appreciated the probably longer answers. That's
well, a lot of
thing.
Times, I said, yeah, I guess, you know, but I'm not there really for her edification, you know. Her.
Well, you've never had a, is it true you've never had a press agent?
I said that one time, and I think Joyce Haber said that it was quoted by a press agent, by my press agent. I don't know. I don't recall having one. I suppose when I was under contract to various studios or various organizations, there were press agents, you know.
But you've never sought publicity. It isn't part of your nature to,
God
like to...
forbid, no. I'm trying to hide.
Yeah. How do you explain that? People often suspect that about an actor, or they say, why would a guy go into the business and get his face up on the screen or go on the stage, and then how can he claim that he's trying to...
Well, you don't know that until after it happens, you know, because the privilege of anonymity, I mean, every man's right and gift is it's too late once it's gone. You know, once they've seen that big red Monday morning eye up on the glorious cinemascopic screen in full red living color, everybody knows you and you don't know nobody. You know, it's kind of a hard way to go.
Was that a shock for you the first time when you saw your own big eye up on that screen? Was it the way you thought it would look?
Tell you the truth, first time I saw myself on the screen, I was in a theater with my wife, and it was a Hopalong Cassidy, I think. And there were two women sitting before us in the Pantages Theater, and this woman said, "My God," she said, "who is that man?" She said, that is the most immoral face I've ever seen.
Most immoral face?
Yeah, yeah.
That probably gave you the courage to go on, I would think. It would me, anyway.
Really?
Maybe she said immortal face.
No, indeed. No. She was very clear. She was very clear about it. The only thing is that it gave rise to a ceaseless suspicion in my poor wife.
I bet it did.
I live with it.
Yeah. Let's get this one out of the way right now. What is the secret of a 30-year marriage? I'll never ask you or anyone else that again.
Deviousness, I should think.
No one ever need ask that question again. I guess
Practice it.
that's the answer that's been wanted for a long time. Hopalong Cassidy, you said. You weren't kidding about that. Were you in Hoppy Serves a Writ?
Yeah.
I saw it.
No kidding.
My favorite.
I looked like Mickey Mouse. I was all beard, you know, which sort of cut my face off to here. Poor, sad little face.
Huh?
All beard, very little dialogue. And I had a deep, heavy bass baritone voice, you know. And directors would say, are you a singer? I said, no. You know. Well, finally, after I quit horses and started on girls, I had to modulate my voice, you know, because otherwise the needle would go like that.
Explain what the needle is for people.
Well, on the mixer, you know, the sound department. It was sound. We were talking by then.
Oh, I know you were in. I know you've been in a couple of talkies. Hopalong Cassidy, though, that's odd to think of you in those now. Those were your first film jobs?
Yeah.
It's supposed to be a.
It was kind of my road game, you know. I mean, every time.
What is a road game?
Well, if everybody got a road game, got a way to go. If I had nothing else to do, you know, if nothing else was working, if I didn't have another job, I could always get a job on a Hopalong Cassidy because they made them endlessly, you know. They made. I think they made 2 pictures in every 3 weeks. They do the interiors of one, and then the exteriors of both, and then the interiors of the second. Come back to the studio, you know. And very good. It was a good, healthy outdoor life, you know, $100 a week, all the horsemen you could carry home. Playing cowboys and Indians, picnicking in the grass. It was okay.
The danger, of course, is the horses. A lot of guys aren't used to them.
Yeah, there was that.
Yeah. Did you ever get hurt by a horse?
At first sight, First I was sore.
Yeah.
Then I was thrown. First day I went to work. The horse threw me 40 feet, and he'd come after, screaming, you know, after me with big piano key teeth, and I'm rolling around, throwing stones at him, and they rope him down. You know, it was funny. He threw me 4 times, and I finally took around the corner and worked them over a little bit.
Did you?
They applauded that.
Reasoned with the horse, probably. How do you do that?
Hit him.
Oh.
I did. I mean, it's the only they had. They issued me a big bone-handled 45, and every time he started to buckle up, I just tapped between the horns and straightened out.
Didn't anyone tell you that a horse doesn't have horns? That was no. I couldn't resist that.
News
I'm
to
sorry.
me.
But why would they give you a wild horse? Was there somebody? Did
Funny.
somebody have an influence? They thought it would be a laugh.
Cowboy humor.
Give him a. Was it an unbroken horse? What they call
No,
unbroken?
it was just a bronc, you know. Been a rodeo bronc.
And you
hurt a
needed the
few
job
people.
so bad you got back on. Wouldn't you think of quitting and let some?
No way, man.
Yeah.
Not at those prices. I just quit Lockheed.
Lockheed.
Oh, yeah. Set out in the world to become a glamorous movie actress. Later for that quitting.
Yeah. I have a question about that because it brings up something interesting that. But we have a message.